Deep in the ocean, an orca pod is on the hunt. But these aren't your average orcas. These guys are organized.
Marketing team, did you get those social media posts scheduled for the SEAL migration?
Aye, Captain. We even have an automated notification for all pod managers when they go live.
They use Monday.com to keep their teamwork sharp, their communication clear, and their goals in sight. Monday.com. For whatever you run, even orcas. Go to Monday.com to dive deeper.
Well, I don't see the point in waiting any longer. So let's bring her out. The star attraction, the one you came to see. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Miss Judy Gold.
I am so excited. First of all, I want to thank Stand Up New York on Broadway and 78. It's a comedy club on the Upper West Side.
The best!
And we're here. They have
the
a lab studio. They have a studio here, podcast studio, and they're letting us use their studio.
Tell the truth, it's a meth lab studio, and we're here
doing
for
meth.
many reasons.
We're doing meth. And I can't, I mean, this is like a dream come. I can't even believe you're sitting across from me.
Two Jews walk into a lab
and
on Broadway.
Ladies, that is her. That is Elayne Boosler.
Oh, is that who it is?
Elayne Boosler.
Woo!
Welcome to Kill Me Now with
Make
Elayne
some
Boosler.
noise. Say it again. Welcome to what?
Kill Me Now.
Oh, Kill Me Now.
With Elayne. Elayne, this is like, you're my dream guest.
Yeah.
You're my, what are you yang me?
Well, thank you very much.
You are my dream.
Now, why would that be?
You know,
because I
Elayne,
get you, doll.
Because as a young comic, I had a few people who I looked up to, and as you know, as someone, look, you started in 73. I started in like 82-ish,
Wow.
81,
Yep.
82
You
in
were
college. Young. And you were who I watched through my high school. You know, it was you and Joan. There were just certain people who let me know this is...
You could do this.
You allowed me to dream.
Oh,
you gave me permission to dream.
God, I wish tipping was allowed in comedy.
So,
Thank you.
and I, you know, my brother and I are vastly different. And the one thing we agree on, Elayne, he loves you.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm like, but you like me better, right? Anyway,
yeah.
I forgot my bell. Fuck.
No, where's your bell?
I got to do it on my phone. I left my fucking, Hold on. I got to do my bell. We have a Jew bell.
A Jew
Yeah,
bell.
so anytime we say anything remotely Jewish.
Oh my goodness, it's a good
Yes,
thing you
I
left it
know.
home.
So
it would sound like the Pope
there we
just found
go.
a new...
How's that? Can you hear that? Oh, there it is. There's a bell. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay, so just to catch up on the bell, my brother, you, me. Okay, Joe.
You realize all over Broadway, concierges are going to the front desk to see who needs what.
Okay, so starting at the beginning, I think you have an interesting life. Your father was a Russian acrobat.
So you believe the bios? The bio was, I had...
Did you make all that shit up about your mother being...
Of course.
I love that.
Yeah, I never...
I looked
Why is that
everywhere.
Jewish? Why is that Jewish?
Well,
You
mother
did-
and father.
You did beautiful research. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That was just the one. That was the one thing. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
It was yes, I was. It was inspired by when I was a little kid. I watched the Dizzy Dean movie, The Life Story, and his wife said to him, "But hon, why'd you give all those reporters different stories about your family?" He said, "Well, baby, they all wanted an exclusive."
That's hilarious.
I know.
You grew up in Sheepshead Bay.
Yes. Is that? Well, there were a lot of Italians
Yeah,
too.
but
so
there was
only one bell ring.
Okay.
Italians, Irish, black people, Jews. It was the melting pot of the world.
And you were the youngest of three.
No. No.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know. I have no idea. But thank you for doing the research.
But I thought you had
so
one.
Appreciate it.
I thought you had one sibling. Or no? Do you have
One.
two? Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm
fucking bullshit.
I'm like the least known about person in the public eye. No one knows my history because I left it behind for good reason.
You're good. That's very emotionally healthy.
One sentence is what you get. I was raised by the Taliban in Brooklyn.
Right.
That's the end of the discussion. I don't think about it. I don't want to know about it.
Okay.
That's it. We don't go
That's
there.
fair enough. Now, you did not graduate high school.
I did not. Sheepshead Bay High.
Yeah.
You know how in the old days they had two kinds of diplomas? One was an academic, which meant you went to school. The other was called a general. It means we saw you here once, we need the chair, get out.
Right.
So that's what I got. And because my birthday's in the summer, I was 16, so I was out at 16.
And did your family as a Jew? That is Elayne Boosler.
That's me drinking water. Very, I have no idea what, I really can't, I don't, it's all blacked out. I remember nothing before my first Tonight Show.
But you went to the Academy, what is it?
That's when I was a little kid to keep me off the streets.
Really?
Yeah.
So
It
you
just forced
were
me
like,
into these lessons just so I couldn't have any kind of a life with friends.
oh, that's good.
Because
But
it was
made you a
total
great
control.
comic. Yeah.
Well, no, that had nothing to do with it.
Really? You think so?
American Academy of Dramatic Arts when you're 10?
The fact that you were, forced to do all this shit.
Well, you know how people say about this government, oh, it must be so great material.
Right.
And I say, I'd rather have a good government and talk about my weight.
Yeah.
I feel the same about my childhood. Oh, look what it gave you. I go, I would have rather have had a good childhood and be married with 3 kids and a nice yellow couch now.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, look what you got.
You
It's
want
like
a yellow couch?
a lemon yellow cut velvet. Belle!
This bell sucks. It's fucking broken.
Oh, no. You know why? We gave it a
go.
nervous breakdown within the first 5 minutes of the podcast. That's why. Within 5 minutes, it went, holy cow, this is heavy duty.
I love it. Now, you
Yes?
were a singer-dancer. You went on tour, Godspell, like a bunch of...
Okay, all that stuff.
Right? So
Yeah.
you were really a...
I was just trying to do anything. No,
Right.
I wasn't. I had no gifts, and I certainly didn't sing by myself. And
Right.
No gifts.
You were in
but-
the company part of these shows.
Well, you know what I did? There was a paper called Show Business and Backstage. There were two.
I
50
remember.
cents.
Yeah.
And I would look at the ads and whatever they were looking for just to, I was working in a clothing store at 14.
Right.
I needed to get out of there. And I think when I was about 16, 17, they were advertising for dancers and singers for a show at the Lucayan Beach Hotel in the Bahamas.
Wow.
And I lied about my age and got the job, and I got to live in the Bahamas for 6 months and walk to work in the ocean every night.
No way.
No, it's true.
And you
I-
were 16?
well, 17 by then.
Wow.
And
very independent.
yeah,
Elayne.
so I was, in that silly little show. It was three girls and 3 guys, and I had the time of my life, and they were all very dedicated show business.
Did you tell anyone your real age?
No, and they were holding ballet classes every
Right.
afternoon and voice, and I was, sleeping with all the croupiers.
Oh,
and,
that's
And they're
awesome.
going, you're just horrible. And I said, look, I have no interest in anything but paying rent. I just want freedom and, life. And it's very funny because years later, and they were all very talented.
Right.
Years later, I'm walking up Broadway, and one of the guys is walking up Broadway, this little boy about 3 years old. And we stopped and said hi. It was many years later. And he looked at me and said, I just have one question. Why you? Why you?
Wow.
And instead of getting upset because you have no idea, well, you do know what
Right.
people
Oh, yeah.
say to
Oh,
us.
please.
We're garbage. We're
Right.
the lowest
Yeah.
of the low. They will come up and say anything to you.
And tell you jokes and
they'll it's the lowest
I know.
of the low. So instead of lashing out, I just said, hey, Tom, you look at this beautiful little boy. You're in New York. You have a nice life. Just be grateful. It's all good. Nobody knows why anything. But I wanted to say, well, dude, I had something you didn't have.
You know what?
Which
You
was
want the answer
a
to that?
gift.
Yeah.
A gift.
And the answer to that question is the question you asked right there. That you
Exactly.
fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Tom. You fucking asshole.
Oh,
All
well,
right.
no.
No,
he just,
Tom, good.
people don't get, look. it's
Barry
fine.
Bitterman. Okay. Ew. So you get a job at the Improv as a door person. Is
Well,
that
I
correct?
actually went as a waitress. And you
Okay.
want to talk about, who's calling? Who's calling you?
No, it's
All
the
right,
fucking
let me turn up
comedy
my
seller.
ringer while we're
All right.
talking. What was funny was you talk about Me Too now and all this stuff and how we went to work. My joke is I started out so long ago we didn't have a word for sexual harassment. We just called it going to work. which is true. And so I go for the interview as a waitress to, the Improv, Bud Friedman, wash my mouth out with soap. And thank you. So I we're talking, and he said, "Why'd you get fired from your last job?" And it's true. After the Lucaine Beach Hotel, they all started doing cruises, the same company,
right?
And they fired me because they said I was ugly. So
they literally said,
"You're ugly."
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did. But I was very cute, I have to tell you.
That is the most They'll say, fucking kidding me?
Will they say anything to us?
That's
anything.
true.
And I have to tell you, I was so beautiful you could die.
Oh, yeah, you were.
Go on my website and look at
the pictures are
ElayneBoosler.com photos. And if you look at the early days
amazing.
of me as a dancer, you will fall down and die. I was beautiful. So it just shattered me, And so he said, well.
But that wasn't the first time the last time you'd heard something so horrible like
I've
that.
heard a million things, but I'm just saying that's why they fired
Right.
me and took the other people on the cruise.
Right.
And I was just stunned. So when I went to get the job as a waitress at the Improv, I was 20, and Bud said, "Well, why'd you get fired from your last job?" He said, "They said I was ugly." He said, "Well, what do you mean ugly?" I said, "Oh, they said my nose was too big." This is what he says to someone who comes in for a job: "Your nose, I haven't gotten past your tits yet." And I was so happy to get the job because,
Are you fucking...
No, that's how they talk to you. So I got the job, and no kidding, that was a setup for what was the next 2 years of removing his hand from my ass every day of my life for 2.5 years. And just, it was horrendous and wonderful without his part, 2.5 years.
I found, I've listened to several interviews that you've done. And
I love that your little book is full of writing and that you actually care. Thank you.
Yes, look at
nobody
3 pages.
does that.
You do. I have 3
no
pages
one does
on
that.
you.
I love you.
Well, I love you. And I just want to say...
That's so kind.
There were so many things that I found as someone who came after you that were so heartwarming. The fact that, you ended up going on stage one night because there were
that's all true.
Right, 3 Japanese people in the audience, and Bud's like, "Go up there," and you're like, "I did
I already
my songs.
sang my 3 songs."
Yeah. And he's like, "Well, go talk.
Go talk. You're funny anyway."
And you go up, and then 2 other comics come back on and act like they're urinating on you.
Well, actually, I talked for an hour. Does that sound familiar, Mrs. Maisel? And thank you when you were accepting your Emmy, saying, "Gee, we did a lot of research. Possibly my script that went around Hollywood for 15 years with all the stories in it that are now on Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
Thank you. And fuck you people."
Right.
Anyway, I went up and talked for an hour. Thank you. Was that Jewish? Talked for an hour, I was so happy to be away from him and away from the door where I was freezing because he kept it open no matter what, and I was right in the door. And that night...
Oh, God, that door. I remember that door.
He would hook it open, and I had bronchitis for 2.5 years because he wouldn't let me close the door. Like, he needs it open.
Well, just so you know, because he was gone by the time I started there, and Silver was there, and we had the door closed all the fucking time. Yeah. Silver, sorry.
Well, it was so funny because he'd chain it open, and it was -2 degrees on 44th and 9th. Yeah. Hell's Kitchen when it was Hell's Kitchen.
You're not kidding.
And then Andy Kaufman would come and quietly unchain the door so it could close so I wouldn't die. But so I went on stage, talked for an hour, 2:00 in the morning. All the guys had come back from their gigs. They were in suits. So Freddie Prinze, Richard Belzer, and a wonderful comic named Tom Curley, who was half of Edmonds and Curley.
Right.
About halfway through, they were so stunned at what
how
I was
funny
doing.
you are.
And I had no idea that it was anything
Right.
valuable, that they all came up with their backs to the audience and mimed peeing on me. And I have to tell you, I know it sounds terrible to normal people,
It's
but
hilarious.
it was the greatest compliment of my life.
To get shit on by another comic
But
is the great...
I knew that, oh, wow, there's some respect. I know it sounds terrible to normal people.
They don't get it.
But it was the best thing that could have. So I come off after an hour, and it was like, how they used to part in the Westerns after the shootout when the guy who made it walked through?
Yeah.
It was like walking down Main Street, and they said, "Do you know what you just did?" And I said, "No." And they said, I said, "That was nothing," because everything in my life that was worth anything was so hard.
Right.
And such a struggle.
Right.
Math and school and dancing and trying to sing. I
Right.
was terrible at everything.
Right.
This was like, boom.
Right.
Nothing. And
It's
they
like
said,
an out-of-body experience.
yeah, because I had no idea that's what I was born to do.
That's what I felt the first time I did stand-up.
Judy, oh.
I felt like, oh my God, what the fuck is this?
See, but I didn't even feel that.
Oh, I did.
Because to me, I just felt like, hey, I got away from this lech for an hour.
Right.
And that was nothing. And they said, you have no idea what you did. I said, you're right. And they said, I said, it was nothing. It was so easy. It was nothing. And they said, you're going to find out, what that was. But I had no idea. I kept singing for like another, year.
Now, were you the only female comic at that time?
Emily Levine.
Oh, right.
Who went on to be a brilliant writer of screen, plays and television, and we're still friends 46 years later, and a genius, and her act was brilliant. And then there was a girl who used to come and go named Kathy Joyce, who was adorable.
Right.
And then Lynn Lipton, who was well known then as a really wonderful actress and the face of every commercial you saw in those days. She had the really adorable, I don't mean this in a pejorative, she had a lovely act. She was adorable. But I was the only one who was making it my career and meant it and was willing to fight and die for it.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
There's so many interesting things about you and your career path. One of them, from my perspective, is that, Andy Kaufman, who you were soulmates.
Well, we lived together for
2.5 years, right? And you say that he taught you how to be a comic.
Yeah, he did.
And
if he was alive today, I'd kill him.
Well, is he alive? No. Anyway, but
I'll never tell.
And you often, when I hear you speak about those days, it's the Belzer and the Freddie Prinze and the Robin Williams and all these guys, Richard Lewis,
Mike Preminger,
and all Frank Ajayi.
Franklin was later in L.A. This is my New York group.
Okay, gotcha. But these guys embraced you.
Oh,
you were that class of
that
comics.
Class was a family. My first family I ever had.
Right.
Ever.
That's what people do. Like when I go, now I know we're at Stand Up New York right now, but when I go, I still do sets.
Of course.
4 or 5 nights a week.
I know.
And I'll be in the worst fucking mood and be like, fuck, and then you go on Facebook and this one's, starring in their own fucking,
you can't worry about that.
And you got to put that out of your head.
Yeah.
When I walk in a comedy club, I feel like I'm home.
Of course.
So,
you have to know about Facebook. I mean, everyone's life looks better when people say, oh my God, you're doing so well, and I'm not.
Please.
And I say, you have to understand Facebook is my business card, not my diary.
Oh, that's what I say. Get a fucking diary. And you know what I'm sick of? If you're on Facebook, like people who take photos of themselves in a hospital room and don't say why they're there. Hi, wish me luck, think good thoughts. What the fuck are you in the hospital
And then you
for?
find out that it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, right.
My favorite is my mother died 94 years ago, and I still miss her to this day. And I go, lucky you.
Yeah.
I tried to kill my mother.
So Richard Lewis,
Mr. Nuts, who I love.
Nicest guy in the world.
Oh gosh, yeah, and the craziest, maybe.
Yes. He said that you were the Jackie Robinson of his stand-up class.
That's true. They saw what I went through. They knew what I was going through.
And I have to say,
and plus I was batting .340 at the time.
Right.
So
whatever was there with that group, what didn't translate to my group of male. I always have thought that the male comics in my sort of generation really boosted each other up and helped each other out. But I
have heard about this, seen it, and known it.
Yeah, and
we were the first and last generation.
Yeah, where the fuck did that go? I mean, the only people who've given me like major jobs: Rosie O'Donnell, Margaret Cho. I'm sure there's more. Don't get mad.
Wonderful.
But those are the people.
But
fought
let me
for
show you
me.
the upside of that, because I'm always looking for that. The upside of that is I was the only one, and they loved me and protected me, and I was their sister. By the time you came along, there were women now. So, yay, you were on equal footing, and it became competitive, and that's a good thing.
Right. And
they
I
didn't
get
have
that.
to be nice
and
to
the
you.
other thing about you that separated you from, and look, we're not saying there was no Joan Rivers and there was no Phyllis
I'll tell you
Diller
what the
and there was
difference
no
where
Mons
the break
Babley.
was, and I'm
Right.
happy to talk about
But
them.
you were a club comic. You were a club comic, and
It's not that they weren't.
Right.
Here's the difference.
Yeah.
And I call it the second golden age of
Right.
comedy. And my book next year
Right.
called Big Fun it's not an autobiography.
It's just-
the stories from those days, because
Right.
I was the doorman for 2.5 years
Yeah.
and I was the fly on the wall, and
Right.
nobody knows these stories, which are so hilarious.
Hilarious.
And, the book is just because of our hard times right now. It's
Right.
just the fun, funny book.
Right.
And it's all the great stories that you go, oh my God, I can't believe
Right.
this. So that's what I'm writing about, not my life.
Right.
But here's the difference. And here's the thing that got me to look at it. You constantly hear from, feminists, which I am one, for years.
Same.
Thank you. Oh, those women were so self-deprecating. It was terrible. And now we're not. And I say,
That's what I was
okay,
gonna
well,
get to,
let
yeah.
me explain this to you, because it's in the liner notes of my new boxed set, Elayne Boosler Timeless.
I have it written on my notes.
Thank you. 4 iconic specials and 1 brand new CD. The liner notes put everything in context
Right.
and explain this. And here's the explanation. No, they weren't self-deprecating. They were working in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
They were doing exactly what the male comics of the time were doing, reflecting their times and their audience's lives. What are you going to tell me? Oh, the women were self-deprecating. No one ever says the men were self-deprecating.
Right.
What do you think? Rodney Dangerfield was the poster boy for
Right,
success?
exactly.
All the men were doing the same thing. That was comedy then.
Right.
They were hangdog husbands and wives,
Right.
trying to survive their marriages, their kids, and their lives. And they were brilliant, the women, because they were exactly doing the right thing in stand-up.
And that was disarming at the time
They
as
were
well.
reflecting
Yeah.
their audience's lives. They were reflecting their times.
Right.
That was what was happening then. That's exactly what they should be doing. And Jackie Vernon and Jackie Gale
Right.
and Rodney Dangerfield and all of them, they were not.
Right.
They were as self-deprecating because that was what comedy was.
Right.
The break came, the big change started. Dick Gregory, Lord Buckley, Lenny Bruce, Robert Klein, of course, Richard Pryor,
Yeah,
later George Carlin.
Right.
I mean, what happened there was it became younger, it became more outward looking than inward looking, and we became the town criers. When I showed up for that night to be a waitress, it was Andy Kaufman, Richard Lewis, Richard Belzer, Freddie Prinze, no Jew there, Jimmy Walker, Pryor was dropping, and Lily was dropping, and we don't count her as a stand-up because she's a
stand-up.
gift from God,
Yeah.
so she's just on her own
Yeah,
cloud.
she has a whole her
She's
own,
her
I
own
know,
planet,
she's fucking
and
amazing.
thank God she showed
I
up.
know.
But so that it was these young guys in their 20s, and I would listen to them while I was waitressing, and they go, hey, and they're talking about their mothers bothering them
Right.
and school
Right.
and dating, and they'd go, you ever notice? And my head went, I always notice.
Right.
Know. And I went, I was 20 and I could relate.
Right.
That's when it changed, and it had nothing to do with self-deprecating, not self-deprecating. We reflect our times, and the
Right.
times had changed.
And you were honestly the first female. Single.
I was the
no
first young single,
female.
dressed up
You
for
were
a
the
date.
Mary Tyler Moore.
Dressed up for
yeah.
a date in Brooklyn, but still, and trying to be as smart and pretty as possible.
Right.
I wanted to be pretty. I wanted to get dates. I wanted to be smart.
Right.
And I went with all of it, and I cannot tell you night after night, you can't do this. It'll never work.
Right.
You can't. All older women coming over that were actresses. I tried it. You can't do it. And when people
Right.
say you have any advice for comedians, my only advice is don't take any advice.
That's what I say. Follow your gut.
There
Don't
you
let
go.
anyone tell you what to do,
Because
and get
they-
as much stage time as possible.
You have to. They don't know what's inside of you. They don't know what's coming out of you. They don't know where you're going or what you see yourself as.
Right.
You must follow yourself.
Now, I'm going to go back, but I have to tell you, when I
I love that you have this notebook.
When
it's like
I
you're
read this
you're
joke,
taking my medical history. I love it.
no, I read this joke online, and I was like, I can't. This is the fucking
It's probably Carol Leifer's
no,
joke.
it is not.
I constantly get
Carol Leifer, by the way. like you were her idol.
Oh no, she's it. But she has the greatest joke ever written in the world. And every week,
what is it?
At least once a week, if for 46 years, someone comes up and says, "You have my favorite joke in the world," they do the joke. And if I think they can take it, I'll say it's Carol Leifers. But if I know they're going to die of shame, then I just let it go. The joke is, no, I don't have any children. Well, none that I know about.
Yeah.
And the flattering thing is that they think, I mean, because we all know it's the greatest joke ever written, I'm flattered they think that was my joke.
Right.
But I always give her
Do you know,
credit.
someone just quoted it on Facebook, and I said, no, that's actually Carol Leifers' joke, and she wrote, thank you.
I know. I always fix Twitter because they're always tweeting it to me.
One of your jokes that I literally was like laughing in my apartment. Pac-Man is the history of the Jewish people being chased while you're eating. Right. I mean, that is the fucking, like, for me, who was a Pac-Man addict in the 80s, like...
Now, for me, who's such a stickler for the word and the construction of jokes, it's actually being chased while eating.
While eating,
now, I think the isn't that interesting how the your slows down the punchline?
Absolutely. There's something very musical about it.
Being chased while eating.
Of course, I wrote Pac-Man is the history of the Jewish people and didn't write the other half. But so here you are. You're at the Improv. You're living with Andy.
No, he's living with me.
Or he's
I had
living
the apartment.
with you.
It's always the woman who has the apartment, and you're dating a drummer or a comic.
Right. You're touring. You start touring eventually.
Eventually, after the 2.5 years.
Right. And you are out on the road, and you're because a lot of people don't know this. Like comedy fans don't realize. You, me, there's a bunch of us who do stand up because that is what we want to do.
Yes, I wasn't using it as a stepping stone to get a show.
And it has turned into, and I don't know.
It took 46 years to turn into a profession.
Right.
Where they're now teaching it in college, which I still don't get that.
You can't teach it.
But in the old days, it's like, well, what do you want to do?
Right.
Well, I want to do this. No, but what do you want to do?
Right.
Because it was just nothing.
And I talked about, Judah Friedlander said, like, he's like, people are like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing stand-up.
Yeah, but what do you want to do?
Is that what you're doing? Yeah, why can't I fucking do stand-up?
What are you going to do after this?
Right.
More stand-up.
Madigan, Kathleen Madigan.
Yeah, we are the road dogs.
Yeah, she is like, I don't want to be on a fucking, I fired my agent. Don't send me on an audition. I'm a stand-up. And there's a bunch of us, and I think that, especially in the, late 80s, early 90s, when the first comics started getting shows based on
when cable came and it blew up. It just blew up.
I think it did a disservice.
Well, it just
depends.
In a way, it did a service and took out the people who shouldn't be,
But now there's that extra layer because then it was like, oh, I can write a stand-up act and get my own show. And people would literally write their sets like, I live next door to my great-grandmother. And
I live next door to Michael Richards.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying Seinfeld, I'm saying everybody tried for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we have this extra layer of, I'm going to do a funny YouTube video. I'm going to get this many followers, and then I'm going to get booked at a fucking comedy club, and I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing.
Well, it's fascinating now to me that headliners can only do 15 minutes, and they have to get some middle act who's a real comic to do the 45 first, and the headliner gets 25,000, and the middle act
Who's
gets
doing
nothing.
15 minutes?
I don't want to name names.
After?
Oh, yeah, sure, after.
So
But I mean, I do, 2 hours, 90 minutes
that's what I was
going to
say.
It's a show.
Yeah.
People say, do a one-woman show. And I go, look, I just want to do stand-up. But Dennis Blair has a funny joke. He says, oh, yeah, one-man show. Your act with furniture.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's pretty much
That's
it.
what
and
it
I'm
is.
stupid. I should do it.
What you could.
But I don't. I just want it to be called stand-up.
But it's also, right. And it is stand-up. And it's
stand-up. Jackie Mason proved it. How much better does it get than that? Not better at all.
So you are going on the road. I'd say I do about an hour 15, an hour and a half.
Well, I don't let anybody open.
Same.
Yeah, but if they insist,
do you have an opener?
then
If they insist, I get someone.
I get a woman, and it has to be a woman, and that's it.
This week's episode of It's Judy Show with Judy Gold is sponsored by BetterHelp. And if you know me, which I think you do because you're listening to my podcast right now, you know that I am a big advocate for therapy. I think it benefits everyone. I think there's so many people who need it, who don't partake. It is so important for your emotional health and well-being. Therapy is fantastic. It is in every stretch of the imagination. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, please do it. But please give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible. It suits your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I have switched therapists in my life. I've had many, many therapists, and sometimes it's not a great fit for you, but don't give up. Therapy is beneficial. You can learn about yourself, you can process, and just be emotionally healthy. I'm telling you, do it. BetterHelp is great because, when I used to schlep to my therapist's office, it was so annoying. You have to do it, and you sit there and you wait. And then I'm telling you, doing it online is fantastic. And BetterHelp is amazing. I know a lot of people who've used it. So if you're thinking about therapy, go to BetterHelp.com. Let the gratitude flow. This is Gratitude Month, people. So you need to let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/JudyGold, JudyGold, today, and you will get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JudyGold. You're welcome.
You develop your act and you end up going on the road and you're doing 2 hours.
2.5.
2.5.
In those days.
In those days. Okay. And this is when all the guy comics are getting specials, starting to get specials, right?
Yeah, I started hitting the road in 76. The special started in the early 80s.
Early 80s. And Robert Klein and, and this is
everyone.
a whole new, thing. Oh, you go to every fucking person and say, give me a special. I'm doing 2.5 hours on the road. Mm-hmm. Nope. Sorry. No one wants to listen to a woman talk.
No one wants to see a woman do an hour.
Right.
That was the line.
Okay. No one wants to see a woman do an hour.
Exactly. That was the line.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're like, well, fuck that.
Well, I kept bringing in my reviews from Michigan and North Dakota and, everywhere. I was everywhere. Places you wouldn't think they loved me, because, what I do, I'm warm and it's funny.
Right.
And I'd bring in the reviews and the headlines were things like, this is the longest and funniest show we've ever seen. And I'd say 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, and they love it. And it's not just New York and LA, it's Mississippi. And, when they go, well, they don't want to. And then finally,
was there ever a woman that you pitched to that said that?
Well, the women were higher up, like Sheila Nevins at HBO. They were higher up. So the thing that was so great was Chris Albrecht.
Yes, who by the way, was a doorman at the Improv.
Well, he bought in when Bud went to LA. Chris bought in and became the guy who ran the Improv and saw everyone and knew everything about comedy. So they steal him away to run the comedy department at HBO. And now he's seen me work for years. I go up for the meeting. He's over the moon. Oh my God, you're going to be my first project here. And it's going to be so great. I'm giving you the special and you're going to be my first special that I present. And they're going to know how good we both are. God bless Chris Albrecht, and I'm an atheist, which I am. And he said, come back next week. I come back. He walks in the room. I already knew. He said, we can't do it. They won't buy it.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did that feel like? Was that like...
It was impossible, and here's why.
Were you devastated, or were
you
like...
of course I was devastated.
And then you were like...
Well, here's why it was devastating. It killed me. It killed my career, because all these guys are doing specials and moving up to bigger places and making money. I'm still in my tiny apartment. I'm playing the same clubs year after year for the same money with new material every year. And
by the way, for listeners, that... in itself does not happen. Maybe a handful of comics have new material, like a new act every year. Yeah.
So I can't move up into better show business. Get money, make a living.
Simply because...
because you don't have that exposure. And nobody becomes a star on the road. They never have and they never will.
And prior to cable, a lot of people don't know this, prior to cable, you did a Tonight Show, you did something, that was it. The path was
the Tonight
kill
Show,
on the fucking
period.
Tonight Show. Johnny says, come sit down, you're done.
That was it.
And then cable came, and that was the end of that.
You don't want to hear my Tonight Show stories.
I love the Helen Reddy Tonight Show story.
Yeah, just amazing stuff. Just, no one has ever said a bad word about Johnny because even from the grave, they're terrified of him. But he was not a good person.
Yeah,
and
there's
he
a book
hated
about
women.
yeah.
There were no books because he would kill you. He was the most powerful man in America.
Since he died, yeah.
But Craig Tennis, who was, worked for the show for
Yeah.
years, while Johnny was alive, Craig wrote a very, very complimentary book, and Johnny still had him killed because you're not
Right.
allowed to talk about him.
Right.
Now the books are starting to come out to tell people what he was, and all my stories will be in big fun when it comes out.
Well, hello. First of all, what he did to Joan.
And what he did to me, I'm
Yeah.
telling you. But yes, what he did to Joan.
I can't wait to say.
What he did to Joan was unconscionable because
Right.
you and I are the kind of people where if we helped someone get a leg up and then she or he got something good,
Right.
we'd
You'd
root
be
for
like,
them.
"Yay,
Hey,
good."
no one's going to knock Johnny Carson
Right,
off
right,
number
right, right.
one. It should have been like, hey, whatever audience you get, congratulations, and I'm rooting for you.
Right.
Because we help our friends and we know who we are. We're going to be fine.
Right.
And he was that small a human being that he couldn't even let
Who
her.
else is that small?
Everyone.
Orange.
Yeah.
Okay. So you then decide, you know what? I'm going to raise the money. You had the
that's
money.
not
You
what
had the money
yeah.
or no?
Yeah. Well, you know what happened? All these guys.
You found a producer.
All
Yeah.
these guys way after me
Yeah.
said, oh, I had to use my credit cards to make my little movie. I go,
Right.
credit cards? Who had credit cards?
Right.
Okay, so it's 1985. I had been on the road literally 52 weeks a year without even owning an apartment
Right.
because there was no place for me to land. I
Right.
didn't need to.
Did you stay in comedy condos as well, or was
Never.
It? Okay.
Never. I never did any of that. I was like, this is who I
Right.
am. This is what it's going to be. And
Right.
it worked.
Right.
But I was on the road from 76 to 85. I had I never spent a penny. I had $10,000 saved. These
Wow.
shows cost $350,000 to make. So I'm in Paris because I went to London and Paris every Christmas for 10 years
Right.
because we had the Des O'Connor show in London. And for 10 years, they would book me on the
Right.
show. And
Awesome.
And me traveling, didn't
Yeah.
graduate high school. I get to see Big Ben in person. I looked
Right.
at pictures. I didn't even believe it existed. I thought I was dreaming.
Right.
I mean, this girl from Brooklyn who didn't graduate high school and literally was raised by crazed sadists,
Right.
insane Taliban fucking lunatics
Right.
who destroyed a nice boy, my brother and me. I mean, I'm almost crying when I think of him,
Right.
but it was so awful. So they would send us 2 first-class airline tickets, send me first 2, and I would trade them in for 1 coach ticket.
Right.
And I would spend a week in the Savoy in London and a week at the Louvre Concorde in Paris.
Oh my God.
Alone for 10 years in a row because my life's dream is to be the loner.
Right.
And literally, I would always meet someone wonderful in Paris and have the time of my life for a week for years and years and years. So it's 85. I'm in Paris, of course, over the holidays. I fall asleep because I never stopped walking. I
Right.
would walk 20 miles a day. And I wake up, it's about 11 o'clock at night, and I go, I'm too tired to go out and eat. And then I say to myself, how dare you? You are in Paris. You don't get to miss one night in Paris. You get out of this bed and you put on your makeup. It's Paris. And I went, of course. What am I thinking? And it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm on the left bank. And I put on all my makeup and get all dressed up. And I'm walking along Saint-Germain-des-Prés. I'm fluent, by the way. I taught myself French.
Wow.
And there's a beautiful seafood restaurant, La Vegenande, and it's open. And I go in. I'm the only customer. And they couldn't be nicer.
Right.
And I'm talking to the waiter, gibbering away in Paris. In come 2 gorgeous guys.
Right.
One with brown hair and gorgeous big brown eyes and a blonde. And they're sitting away from me and they keep looking at me and looking at me. And I'm chatting a mile a minute in French to the waiter. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, they think I'm a little French girl,
Right.
So it's time to, and I hear them speaking English, it's time to leave. And so instead of going around the empty restaurant, I squeeze past the brown-haired guy's
Right.
chair. And he turns around and he says to me, are you a school teacher from Brooklyn? Talk about how to take the Paris out of Paris.
Oh my God,
And I
that's
said,
hilarious.
no. And he said, but I know you. Do you know Lorna Horowitz? And I said, yeah, she was one of my best friends in high school. He said, well, I was her boyfriend, Steve. And I said, I've heard about you for years, but I never met you. Well, that became my live-in for the next
No fucking
Remember
7
the Liza
years?
Minnelli, 7 years. Remember the Liza Minnelli song? You gotta ring them bells.
You gotta ring them bells.
You gotta
Yeah.
hootie
Yeah.
too. You gotta
Yeah.
ring them bells. It's such a happy thing. So, yes, he lived in New York. I lived in LA. He had just come back from shooting the film Reuben and Friday the 13th.
Right.
And they were in Germany doing a GE, corporate. And I, he came and moved in with me in LA. And he
That
said,
is the best fucking story. I hope that's in the book.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
So he said, what's going on? And I told him, and he said, what? I said, but you have to understand, even if we did a special, it's personal. They hate me. And he
Right.
said, you're crazy. And I said, well, that aside,
Right.
they do hate me. It's personal. And he said, it's not personal. It's business. You have to show them you can make the money. I said,
Right.
I've explained that I can make the money. I've showed them the reviews. And
Right.
he said, we'll do the show. And I said, Steve, I have $10,000.
Right.
The shows are $350. We need 4 cameras,
Right.
5 cameras, editing. He said, I own an editing company in New York. I know everyone. I'm a DP. I've done every
Wow.
job on a film.
Right.
I'll shoot it. He said, and I know everyone in New York. Let's go to New York. So we go to New York, and he gets the best of the best, all the guys who shoot movies, the best techs. And he says this to them. He says, okay, here's the deal. You could get a little bit of money now, and we'll do the special, and you will be done. Or you can get your full fee when Elayne sells the show. Now, I was so known by then, and they all said,
Right.
Elayne Boosler will wait for our money.
Right.
We shot. It's still one of the finest shows ever
Right.
done, Party of One,
Party of
which
One,
is in my new boxed set called Elayne Boosler Timeless, because the shows are timeless. And we shoot Party of One. But he says to me, look, they've already turned you down 50 times. We're going to have to get stars that they can say no to,
Right.
just to do a little thing at the beginning. And we were like the first people to ever do the opening sketch.
Right. Bill Cosby?
Bill Cosby, it was his first week as his show at #1. He
Right.
single-handedly revived not only the sitcom on
Right.
TV, but revived the fortunes of NBC.
It's funny that you're using the word revive with Bill Cosby.
Well, yeah, probably won't happen again.
Yeah.
But revived the sitcom, revived NBC's fortunes, and brought back giving comedian shows, which is
Right.
why that started happening
Right.
again. So we got Bill Cosby, and he was on the cover of Time that week. I got David Letterman, whose show had just become #1. He had never stepped outside that show.
Right.
Dr. Ruth, her first big year. She was
Yeah.
tremendous.
Yes, I remember that.
Larry Bud Melman, who was such a cult figure on
Right.
Letterman. Brother Theodore, who was the New
Right.
York cult figure of all time. Tom Waits was my best friend. He gave me his music. I mean, it was everything you could imagine. And then the best act anyone's ever done, because 12 years of honing that material.
course, yeah.
You know what that
About
means.
every fucking night,
Every
yeah.
joke was a diamond on a piece of
Right.
velvet. That's Jewish.
Right.
So, so we do it. But Steve said to me, "You have to do the heavy lifting. I'm teach you how to direct, produce, edit." And that's why I can do
love
anything
this,
now.
Steve.
Oh yeah. So I learned how to produce. I edited myself offline for 6
No way.
months.
And this is pre-digital,
Pre-digital,
pre-fucking
pre-everything.
computers,
So I've
yeah.
got 5 cameras to
Right.
edit, and offline editing meant that you did a rough cut. It took years,
Right.
because you would do it by the time code, and you'd write it
Right,
down,
right.
and you'd shave things off. And if you wanted to say put a different scene at the top of your hour, you had to recut the whole show,
Right.
because you couldn't stick it in. It was manual, not digital.
Right.
So it would take you another month to add 2 seconds to the top. So you had to be pretty sure about your offline editing.
Right.
To his credit, George Slaughter, who I had written for.
Oh, I love George.
Right. He created Laugh-In. He's a
Right.
comedy genius.
He
piece
loves
of history.
comics. Yeah.
He, I have to tell you, he was so incredible to me. We didn't have money to edit, of course, and I went to him because I had recently worked for him writing shows, because
Right.
I was a writer too all the time
Right.
when I got tired of the road. And I said, I need an editing bay, and he owned the biggest editing thing
Right.
here. He said, here's the key. Teach yourself how to do the joystick, and you get the 3/4 machine and whatever you need. And I was there for like a year.
Wow.
With free. So I couldn't have done it. So we have one of the greatest shows ever made. And I know I'm not being modest, but it really is one of the greatest shows ever made. People still come up to me
Yeah, it's
in the
fucking
market.
brilliant.
They quote every joke in
Right.
the world.
And you sold, how did you sell it?
So I go back with the show. Now it's done. And they say, sorry, no.
Oh my God! Sorry.
So I go home to Steve, and he said, you're right. It's personal. I'm sorry. You're right. I can't believe it. What do you want to do next? I said, here's what I want to do. I want to go on the road for a year and pay everyone, and then I quit. And he said, okay, we'll move to San Francisco. I'll teach filmmaking or something. So I went on the road for a year.
I just have to insert. Sure. I love Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
So I go on the road for a year. And the greatest saying is, if someone in TV doesn't like you, wait 5 minutes.
Right.
But it was a year, not 5 minutes.
Right.
And of course, new young hip guys came in and took over Showtime. Steve took the show up there. And they went, holy moly. And I got 4 specials, millions of dollars, which is why I still don't have to work. And that's what happens. You have to wait for the old guard to drop dead.
I know.
With their hate and their misogyny and their not wanting the society and the culture to change and recognize women and black people and immigrants and gays and everyone else.
Wait, this sounds so familiar.
Does it? Do you think we've gotten through it? No.
Yeah. So you're now a household.
But let me tell you the best part.
Yeah.
I go back to HBO with it first.
Right.
And by now they have developed the Cinemax Comedy Experiment, which was a half an hour of anything you wanted it to be.
Right.
So they come back to me and they say, great, we're going to buy your special and we're going to... You okay, doll?
Sorry.
You need a lozenge? A tissue, a cough drop?
It's minus 20 degrees in this room.
It's very cold. I just put my coat back on.
I know,
You'll
I'm
note.
about to do it. Yeah.
I take it up there and they say, great, we love it. We're cutting it in half and putting it on the Cinemax Comedy Experiment. And I said, you motherfuckers, I'm not an experiment.
Right.
How dare you? No.
And cutting it in half? Go fuck yourself.
Because it was a half-hour venue.
Right.
I said, you're calling me, an experiment? Like, ooh, let's see if this woman could tell jokes. I was so broke and so, I said, you can go fuck yourself. I'll eat cat food.
Right.
And but then Showtime got the new guys in. And Peter Chernin, who now owns the world, and Alan Sabinson, to their credit, it was just the joy of my life.
And then HBO, I remember, started doing these one-night stands with women. Like they wouldn't
Well, here's
wouldn't
what
give
happened.
the women the
Well, what happened was, and it's in the liner notes of my new box set called Elayne Boosler Timeless on Amazon. What happened was...
I love it.
You're going to throw something at me,
best.
aren't you?
No, I love it.
What happened was, nobody cared until the New York Times reviewed it the next day. It came out, the New York Times went crazy.
Right.
And they said, basically, where has this been? A attractive young woman standing there talking to us without...
attractive. All of a sudden you're attractive.
Without flaying herself for our amusement.
Right.
It's all I could have written it myself. It's what I wanted.
I hope you framed it.
No, because I have so many of them. But it was, just like, hey, a wonderful human being talking to us and we don't have to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, in a minute, HBO announced Women of the Night.
Yeah.
4 women each Friday night, 15 minutes apiece for an hour, and they still had to name it after hookers.
Right. That's the fucking,
But that is why people say I opened the door in cable for women stand-ups, because that show did.
Yeah.
And they were so like, oh my God, we better jump on this bandwagon.
Right.
So then they called me, HBO, and I went up and they said, we want to sign you for all your next stand-ups. And I said, oh no, I'm staying with Showtime. They bought me and I'm loyal. And they said, well, how about the Cinemax Comedy Experiment? You can write a movie for us. You can write and direct your own movie. I said, I'm in. And they said, but you can't work for them too. You have to only be here and do your specials for us. I said, let me tell you people something. Nobody wanted me. So I'm going to do your fucking Cinemax Comedy Experiment. And when I go back to Showtime and they say I can't, I'm going to tell them they can go fuck themselves too. I'm working for anyone I want, anytime I want, forever, because nobody wanted me.
Right.
So don't even try.
And what did they say?
And they said, oh shit. And I did 2 movies for the Cinemax
Yes, I have them here.
which I wrote and directed and I still
here
love.
Are they? Comedy From Here and The Call.
Comedy From Here, a drama.
A
and
drama,
The Call.
yes, and
right.
The Call.
And I went back to Showtime. They said no. I said tough. They said okay. And I went back to HBO and said tough. And they said okay. And I worked for everyone all the time because they didn't want me. And here's the best thing that happened. Because they didn't, they hired all these guys to do their specials, so they owned them.
Right.
Nobody owned my shows because
great.
I made them. So that's why I can even release a box set 40 years later, because I own the shows.
Now, did you have an agent at this time?
I had nobody ever, anytime,
It
ever.
makes it even more beautiful
I
that
know.
you're in these fucking meetings going, go fuck yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And if you had an agent or someone representing you, they would have been like, no. Thank
You know
God
what I
for
just
Steve.
remembered?
What?
Well, Steve didn't come to the meetings.
I know,
mean,
but
I
he
was,
gave
but
you-
he gave me
yeah.
my career and my life there. And Andy
Right.
gave me my life, and Steve
Right.
gave me my career, and I appreciate them both. And I give Steve, all due credit everywhere. There was a woman in one of the meetings with Chris, a young woman who should have gotten me. And I had on this really gaudy bracelet that I had just brought back from Paris.
What year is this?
Early 80s, I guess.
Yeah.
And I loved this bracelet. And I knew it was, gaudy, but that's what I loved about it. It was from Paris, bitch.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there. She says nothing in the meeting. And then at the end, she starts to be very snarky and says, if you ever get a show, you should wear that bracelet. That bracelet, you should never take that. You should wear that everywhere. And I just thought to myself, fuck you, bitch.
You fucking cunt.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what our lives were and probably still are for the most part.
You did the Tonight Show. You were on Letterman.
That's like saying, so you did Auschwitz.
Yeah, no,
then you came back. You were in Auschwitz.
You did.
That it is not, you did the Tonight Show.
No.
So you were in Auschwitz, then you got a job. Let's talk about the job you got.
But
you skipped right over Auschwitz.
But no, I'm saying, after this, you're doing a lot of TV.
You're missing the point.
What?
Even getting the Tonight Show after what I went through there. But yes, go ahead.
No.
I know you want to skip.
No, I don't. I want to go. I want to go on. There's just a funny Tonight Show story that I was trying to get to. But
what?
But you are a household name at this time, and you're still having to fucking fight your way.
You never stop fighting. Do you know what Phyllis Diller said to me? And I tell it to all my good friends. When, she loved me and I was always at her house.
Loved her.
And she couldn't have been more generous. Yeah. She was the kindest person you'll ever meet.
So talented.
Oh, so amazing and warm and sweet. And I was in the middle of the hard times and I'm at her house. I said, how did you not quit? And she said, darling, every morning for breakfast, I take a teaspoonful of shit lest I forget the taste.
Wow.
So that's what you have to know. And we're still eating shit. So I still
But I
eat
still
shit for
love
breakfast
it.
every
I
day.
still fucking love being
We wouldn't be here if you didn't love it. That's when people say to me, should I be a dentist or a comic?
Right.
I say, if you have a choice, be a dentist.
Yeah. And if you have to ask that question.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you have a choice, which means you don't have to do it in your gut, don't do it.
Don't forget to tune in next week to Just Kill Me Now.
It's Just Kill Me.
Oh. Don't forget to turn for part 2 on Just Kill Me.
No, it's not. It's
Just Kill Me.
No.
Judy Gold's Just Kill Me.
Kill me now.
Just kill me now.